Full Contact. In association with Mitsubishi Motors. Drive your ambition.
Hello and welcome to Brian Moore's Full Contact in association with the Telegraph and Mitsubishi Motors. Just 11 days now till the start of the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan. We're here with you every Monday on Full Contact for the entire build-up and of course throughout the tournament. The warm-up games are now finished. The teams are starting to make their way to Japan. England, I understand, have got stuck in a storm and will be waiting 5 hours for a coach. So much for Japanese efficiency, where they say. Look, today we'll be putting all of the four home unions under microscope ahead of the World Cup opener, which is on September the 20th. England ended their warm-up series with a fairly routine win over Italy on Friday night. They've got a curtain raiser against Tonga, and we'll be speaking with the former winger Mark Cueto about how likely their chances are of winning the trophy once again. Ireland will somehow go to the World Cup as the number one ranked side. You work that out. If you can explain how that's come about, then please do, because I have no idea. They've had a poor 2019. Their win over Wales at the weekend was probably their most encouraging performance since their win over the All Blacks way back in 2018. The former Ulster centre Darren Cave will join us to discuss that win and also the end of an era for his former club teammate Rory Best. As for Wales, they've now slipped back to 5th in the world rankings after back-to-back defeats against the Irish. That's 3 defeats from the 4-1 games for Warren Gatland's side. We'll speak to the Wales and Bath centre Jamie Roberts about whether that will affect the mood in the camp. Scotland needed a strong second half to beat a tough Georgian side at Murrayfield, and we'll be speaking to the former captain Alistair Kellock, who has traded the pitch for the boardroom, about their chances in the coming World Cup. Delighted to say another Scot alongside me today, so we can discuss all things Scotland. The former Scotland and Lions fly-half Craig Chalmers. Hello, Craig.
How are you doing, Brian? Good to be here.
Yep, Scotland, look, 4 warm-up matches, 3 wins. You can't say they've played particularly fluently, other than in patches, but given the number of injuries they had to very key players, and especially multiple injuries in one position, it was always going to take time for them even to get those former regulars back into the side. Do you think they've had enough time before the pivotal games in their group to refashion and reassemble what on paper is a very good squad, starting 23, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've got some good players that have been injured, but I think every team in the Six Nations had players that were key to the team that have been injured, so we're no different from anybody else. So I think we've got 1 or 2 back. Barkley was a key player for us, I think, back in the squad, but he's not captain anymore. Gregor's taken that off him, so that's a bit of an issue. But I'm not concerned about the form. I think it's patchy at times. It comes in and comes out, and that's been a big problem over the last 2 or 3 years under Gregor, is it a little bit inconsistent. So the first game in Paris was a bit of a blow for everybody, but you've got to remember that all these players haven't played for quite a long time, and same for the French, obviously, but we were very disappointing, but we turned it around the week after, and the confidence that we got from that win at Murrayfield against France, a good French side, we took that into Georgia, who are obviously a lot weaker. A great win in Tbilisi, playing away from home, probably our first win for a long time away from home. We're not very good away from home. So,
would you have liked to see them play more Tier 1 teams?
Yeah, but I suppose it's it's a double-edged sword, really. I think I think it'd be great to play the bigger sides and test yourself fully, but listen, I think it'll all unfold during the World Cup. I think what we've done is we've got onto the plane this morning with one guy who would probably be on that plane with a bar an injury, which is Sam Skinner. I think I would definitely have taken Sam Skinner on the World Cup.
What about Hugh Jones? Because he impressed me, and I was a little bit surprised about his absence.
Yeah.
I know he's going to take 31, but
yeah, I know. I think what he's done since he's come into international rugby has been fantastic. He's scored some great tries. Going forward, he's fantastic. great outside break. He's very elusive. Decent hands. He's not played much rugby in the last 6 months at Glasgow. I don't think the coach there fancies him that much. Defensively, he's a little bit iffy here and there, and he's gone for Chris Harris. I would have gone for Hugh Jones. I think there's a lot of calls for Hutchison as well from Northampton to go, but I think Hugh Jones instead of Harris for me. But listen, everyone's got their own squads that they've taken and picks, but I think Gregor's very much got most of it right. Maybe back rows, maybe still a little bit of an issue. A big ball carrier. I might have taken Magnus Bradbury, who was on standby for Jamie Ritchie over the weekend. So I think Jamie Ritchie he's recovered and he's going to go. He had a head knock, I think.
What do you think is behind the changing captaincy to Stuart McNally? I can't fathom that one.
Well, I don't think John Barclay's guaranteed his spot, and I think that's maybe the issue. I think John's been out of the game for a long time with injuries. He's come back in. Will he start? I don't know. He's not stood out for me in the game that he's played. Laidlaw scrum half, I think Ali Price might start 1 or 2 games. There's not much in between them. I think the way Giggers try to play the game, this fast, open, expansive game, the fastest international game in the world, Ali Price suits that better, but he just loses control sometimes, whereas Greg has got the control. But no, I think Stuart McAnally is a fantastic captain. He's captained the 20s when I was coaching the Scotland 20s, and he shows great leadership, a great example all the time to and the boys want to follow him. So I think he'll be ideal, and I think he'll go into it and do a great job.
Given the number of injuries and the way in which the campaign's unfolded pre-tournament, do you think that Gregor definitely knows he's starting 15 or 23?
I think he's pretty much, nailed on to what he wants. I think something like Darcy Graham just throws the hats in there a little bit, because you got Seymour and Maitland, who would be your nailed on wingers probably for many, but Darcy Graham, this wee guy from Hawick, has come on the scene and he's scoring tries for fun. He's looking sharp defensively for a little guy. He's really, really good. So he could really push for a place in that Test starting lineup. And I think midfield is one as well that's been talked about a lot. We've got a lot of centres in Scotland that are good players that have been left out. So you've got, I think he'll go with Sam Johnston and Duncan Taylor, and obviously Finn at fly half is nailed on, and then you've got options at scrum half. But depends who you're playing, and I think we've got to be able to adapt. And that's my biggest issue with Scotland, is that can we adapt to playing different types of game in different conditions? Especially if it is monsoon conditions in Japan at some point.
Well, you not only need to adapt from game to game, you need to adapt within games as well, don't you?
Oh, exactly, and I think our players, will do that. I think Finn Russell's a clever enough rugby player, and I think when he's hot, he's boiling, and he's done some great stuff over the last few years, and he could be one of the big stars of this World Cup if he gets it right, and if he gets a platform to play off, because listen, these fly halves and scrum halves are only as good, and the wingers are only as good as you guys up front. If they can supply the ball and the platform to play off, then Scotland have got a great chance.
Well, you invited me to lump on Scotland at 50-1, which is a good outside bet. I'm not sure. I'm not a betting man anyway, but trying to inject a little tone of realism. What do you think would be a good tournament for Scotland?
A good tournament for Scotland, semis. I think semis would be great. Look at our group; it's not easy. We've got Ireland first up, which I think we can beat Ireland. I think that's the one game we've got to really go hard at.
I think you're probably better at having that fixture first, to be honest.
Definitely. And Ireland are an ageing side for me. The very good side, very well organised, but there's not too many surprises there. We know what they're going to do. We know how they're going to play. And I think that can be found out a little bit in this World Cup, as they have been in our other World Cups. So, I think Ireland first up's good for us. And then we've got Samoa, Georgia, and then Japan the last game. So, we'll know what we've got to do going into the last game, because I do believe we'll beat Samoa.
Well, it's interesting because I didn't know this, but I'm reliably told, and it's true, that Japan as the hosts had some influence in the way in which that group was constituted. So they chose to try and take their fixtures later and get the big one, so to speak, Ireland and Scotland, right up first off.
Well, it is the very last pool game. So it's going to be a big one to finish with, and maybe quite an awful lot resting on it, and that'll be a really tough game.
Well, the thing is, you've no idea what state the sides will be in come then, will you? The squads and injuries and all sorts of things.
Well, it's like our group. Scotland could beat Ireland. Ireland could beat Japan. Japan could beat Scotland. It could come down to points differential or whatever. And the same goes for the English group as well. It could have the same situation. But listen, you can't go into, you've got to go into thinking every game you're going to win. And if we can get this quarterfinals, the problem we've got is we've got the All Blacks of South Africa either way in the quarterfinals. So I'd rather play the South Africa if possible, whatever way that happens, because we've beaten them before. We've never beaten the All Blacks, and I can't see it happening at a World Cup. So, listen, a semi-final for Scotland would be amazing, and then after that, you just got to dream about getting to that final.
Well, England 3 wins out of 4 in their warm-up games. To discuss those performances and indeed their prospects in Japan, we're pleased to speak to Mark Cueto again, the former England and Lions winger. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Brian. All right.
Yeah, not bad. Eddie Jones has been tinkering around with various combinations for various reasons. Are you happy that he has got in his mind the starting 23 and the way in which he wants to approach the tournament?
I think you know what it's like, Brian. I think the warm-up games, they go well, and everyone's sort of raving, or they don't go so well, and you treat them as warm-up games. But I think ultimately we're in a pretty good position. I think prior to that first game at Twickenham against Wales, where, as you mentioned, Eddie put, for want of a better term, pretty much a second team out, and Wales came to Twickenham pretty much with their Grand Slam winning team. There was loads on the line for them, ranking, if they beat England, they'd go number 1 in the world. Alun Jones, his record cap, all this sort of stuff. And the way we beat them, I thought we were outstanding that day. And then, again to back it up against the Irish, 2 weeks ago, the game on Friday night was a bit of a nothing game really for me. I think both teams looked like they were just treading on eggshells, and nobody wanted to pick up an injury or, jeopardise the World Cup. So I think overall, we went down to Cardiff. That was always going to be a tough game, and we ran them pretty close. I think generally the lads will be happy with that performance. A last minute try by George North sort of secured it for them. But I think overall they'll be in a really, really positive place.
And a couple of things. I mean, he's taking Mako Vunipola and Jack Noel. They're probably not going to be available till the third game, which is the start of the big ones for England in the pool. But if by any chance they're not available for those, there's a good case for them not going at all. Now, given the amount of talent we've got and the coverage in the back three, and there's loads there, wouldn't it have been better off taking another scrum half?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the fact, George Ford is covering, as emergency 9 cover, it just seems crazy. It seems crazy. We all know how good Ben Youngs is. He's got a wealth of experience. He's the out and out number 1. Obviously something's happened with Danny Kerr along the way. There's guys like Richard Wigglesworth as well that have stepped in and done brilliantly well for England over the years. But to give Willie Hines that sort of second spot, it's not even like he's given him a proper run in his warm-up games either. So he is his own man. Brian, isn't he? You know, he seems to thrive off making these funny decisions and making the press and the media sort of, question what he's doing. But I think he's got to be careful. You know, it seems funny. You know, he ultimately knows. He knows what World Cups are all about. He's won them. He's been involved with in setups. He's had a lot of experience, and who are we to sort of say to him, what are you doing? But your gut just seems to be in. He's got to be careful with all this sort of tinkering and all this messing about with the squad, and particularly, like you say, when he's got so much experience, so much quality, to be tinkering around with a squad like he is just seems stupid, really.
Well, the only reason for me to take Jack Nowell is to definitely play him in the starting 15 in the first big game, the third pool game. I can't see, and that seems to me to indicate a back three of either Watson or Daly at fullback, with Johnny May on the other wing. What do you think?
I think that would be the starting back three for me. Johnny May completely nailed on. Again, who knows between Elliot Daly and Anthony Watson? I think if push came to shove, I'd suggested he'd go with Anthony Watson at fullback and then Jack Nowell on the other wing. But again, that sort of faith and that trust that he's putting in Jack. It just beggars belief. I think Jack's as good as the next man, but when he's struggled with injuries, he's not played any rugby, to drop him into a World Cup, whether it be the second, third, or fourth game, and expecting to hit the ground running, I just can't see it happening.
Well, England at the moment, they're stuck waiting for a coach because of a typhoon and so on. These things are not ideal, but are people making a bit too much of it, saying it will be disruptive of their preparation?
Yeah, I think so. It is what it is. In an ideal world, you don't have disruptions like this, but it's happening. But there's still a good 2 weeks plus away from their first game. So, if their sort of preparation and training gets disrupted by a day or two now, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. They've played 4 games. They've been together for 10 weeks. If anything, it might be a bit of a blessing in disguise that they can't get out on the training field or whatever. So I think ultimately, again, it is the press making something out of nothing. They've got a right. They've just flown out to Japan for the start of the World Cup. It's high on their agenda. It's high on everybody's agenda. People want to hear about what's going on, but ultimately, I can't see it making a huge difference now.
Mark, same question as to all the contributors in this podcast. Minimum return for England? Final, semi-final, win?
Minimum return. I think off the back of 2015, getting out of the group. If you'd have asked me the same question back then, you'd have said final, on home soil and all the rest of it. But that was a disaster. I think on paper we've got the team and we've got the ability to go to the final, but you know as well as me, it's never as easy as that. So I think realistically, anything less than a semi-final would be a disappointment.
Yeah. Okay, well we'll soon see. Good to speak to you as always, Mark. Thanks very much.
Top man. Cheers, Brian.
Cheers. Craig, I wrote. We've been discussing, and we will be discussing throughout the podcast, about the importance of ball carriers, because that's what creates momentum. That's what gets you the hard yards and opens everything up. And when England have available to them, and Johnny May is a carrier, believe me, not in the power way, but he always makes space and so on. When you've got him, Thokina Senior, Tuolangi, both of them are polars. George is a good carrier. Sinclair, Cruz, Itoji, Laws. You've got there, if they all play and they all play well, as good an armoury as anyone else has got.
Oh, they are. They have. And I've been really impressed with Cokanasiga. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure.
Cokanasiga.
But I think Tuolangi is going to be a key guy for England in this World Cup. He's been injured a lot. He seems to have, got through that now, not picking up the little injuries and stuff. So, I'd like to see him back playing, for England and playing well for England, because I think he can be have a massive influence.
Can you tell everyone what the presence of someone like Tuolangi at 12 does when you're a defender at 10 and you got 10, 12? What does it do?
I was always going, when I was playing Scott Gibbs or Tim Horan, it was man on man. I was going man on man, because normally you drift out from a line out and you'd have Scott Gibbs or Tim Horan or one of these guys coming down your channel, which was not much fun, to be fair, especially Scott Gibbs, because he was one of the hardest guys to get a hold of. I much preferred tackling somebody with longer legs, much bigger target to hit. But I think Tuolangi's low centre of gravity, pace, good fend, but his best position is 13. I think if England play the best midfield, which I think is probably Farrell, Tuolangi, Slade, when they're all fit, it doesn't play him in his most effective position. He can hit short, but he's good in outside channels as well, and he's very, very strong and quick. So, yeah, I think he's going to be key in wherever he plays for England. But taking on these guys coming down, and it's really, really important nowadays. Teams have got strong tacklers in that 10 channel, because if you've got a weak guy, you can target that. To be fair to George Ford, he's not the biggest guy in the world, and if he plays at 10 for England, then teams will target him. And likewise with any other 10 that's not the greatest tackler. So you've got to, you've got to be able to do all aspects of the game now: tackling, running, So I think it's a key area.
Well, I think England just need to be cute with Tuolangi. They need to get enough ball to him so he can do what he can do. But because players just can't drift off him, because you can't take a chance of getting caught, with an inside shoulder, using him as a decoy with having the runners outside could open up all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, the go-forward ball is, front foot ball is so important. We've got to give the forwards targets, whether it's with our centres or wingers or whoever. But it's decision-making when they get the quick ball, when to go wide. And it's communication from the outside. And it's good communication, not just, some wingers shouting, "Give me it now," and it's not on. Calling at the right times, right place, decision. And, it'll come down to 2 or 3 key decisions, these big games in the World Cup. And get them right, you could be the winners. Get them wrong, you might win nothing.
Well, I think that's one of the things that England fans, have got reason to look favourably on this squad, because not only have they got and shown they've got the ball carriers, but say just against Ireland, all right, Ireland didn't play well, but you still have to finish these off. And the thing about the backs, they kept the depth, they kept the width, they kept the timings right, passes went in front, and so 6 chances, 6 tries. And England are one of the few teams, I think, who've shown they've got the ability to score tries quickly. So if they get behind, you can do it. With Wales and Ireland, I get the feeling if something goes wrong and you have a couple of bounces that are bad, you get 2 tries down, they might struggle with the way that they habitually play the game to make that up.
Yeah, I think England showed it really clinical, throughout the warm-up games, predominantly scoring the tries when they come along. Wingers holding their depth is a massive bugbear for most midfield backs, because they do creep and try and get that extra yard. But I think Wales and Ireland. I mean, Ireland's best strike player at the moment is Stockdale. George North used to get in the ball. It's bringing these players into the game at the right time in the right place off the right kind of ball. You don't want to be sending up a channel that's going to be blocked up. You want to get a shoulder, even get offload. So it's timings, it's decision making, right place, right time in the park. And I think if teams get that right, it'll be creating so many chances in the game. You only get so many. You've got to take them when they come along.
Well, England will, depending on the position, if they get out of the group, first or second, will have probably Australia or Wales, and then one of the semi-finalists will be New Zealand or South Africa, provided they win their games, and that's obviously an assumption, and it might be an erroneous one. From an England point of view, look, it's as simple as this in this World Cup. Whichever way this draw goes down, and the first games in the top half of the pool are going to be absolutely crucial as to where things break down. No side is going to have, an easier run to the final, which has happened in other tournaments. So whoever wins this particular World Cup is going to have to have earned it. And I put it no higher than this. If England play as well as they can, and they have all the ball carriers fit and playing, they've got as good a chance as anyone, and no one will like playing them.
But they won't play brilliant every game. And look at the team that won the World Cup in 2003. They struggled. They've been the best team before the World Cup.
Well, they're behind in 4 of the games.
Exactly. So, you know what? They go in there with the massive pressure of, they can win this. Other teams don't have that pressure. England do have that pressure every time they take the pitch. They're expected to beat whoever is put in front of them. And can they deal with that pressure? I think they can. I think the quality of player that England have got right throughout the squad, the depth is unbelievable. Can they go and do it in Japan? I think they can. I think they're one of the 4 teams that can win the World Cup. And I've no doubt that they're mentally strong. They're looking great, Nick.
Well, why don't we turn to the number 1 side in the world, according to world rankings? That's Ireland. Despite some very indifferent form since the height of beating the All Blacks in 2018, they've gone to number 1. Let's speak to Darren Cave, the former Ireland and Ulster centre, about their prospects. Hello, Darren.
Hello, all I heard was you saying that we were the best team in the world.
No, I said you were ranked number 1. I don't know. And look, Wales are 5th now. God, it's a nonsense. Let's leave that to one side because it's incomprehensible to me. Ireland gave Joe Schmidt, Rory Best good send-off, good win against Wales at home. Do you think they're anywhere near the form that they showed when they were on that big climb, the long run, to beating the All Blacks in 2018, or are still some way short?
I think it was a bit more like Ireland. There's no hiding the fact that we were a little bit twitchy after that England game on the back of a Six Nations where we had been beaten comprehensively by both England and Wales. But I think the most encouraging thing, I think the way to beat this Ireland team is out and out power. It's stopping their momentum completely. And the big concern is when we get to the World Cup, it's the likes of Wales, England, who we've really struggled with, who are just literally, the last 2 times we've played England, they've just completely stopped our momentum. They've smashed us, and we've really struggled to get into the game. At the World Cup, I think teams like Scotland will try and move the ball. I think that'll suit us. But it's when we come up against the absolute powerhouse nations, and England are one of those at the minute.
What do you think of the pairing of Robbie Henshaw and Bundy Aki? Is that a likely starting pairing?
If you'd asked me 3 weeks ago, I said no. I always thought it was Robbie Henshaw at 12, Guy Ringrose at 13. The only time the 3 of them have been fit and available for Ireland before he put Robbie Henshaw at fullback against England in the Six Nations, which didn't work. I think the way Bundy Aki's played the last 2 weeks and the level of physicality that he helps give us, I think it could be Bundy Aki with Robbie Henshaw. And then actually Guy Ringrose has come on and played okay on the wing the last 2 weeks. So I'm wondering, is Joe lining him up for that wee slot on the bench? So I think at the minute it's looking like it's Aki and Henshaw.
And, hi Darren, it's Craig Chalmers here. How are you doing?
How are you?
Good, mate, good. Listen, how a full back, Rob Kearney is coming for a lot of criticism recently as well about how he's been playing. Have you every faith in him going to the World Cup and being number 1 full back? Because Ringrose could play 15 as well, maybe.
Yeah, I've never seen Ringrose play 15, but Joe name-checked him as somebody that could go there for them. I'm personally a big fan of Rob Kearney. I think he offers so much positionally. We saw at the weekend Wales had a lovely attacking platform from a midfield scrum. They passed the ball left, then went back right, and it chipped through, which was perfectly done by Halfpenny, and Kearney got there in time. And sometimes it's about saving 7 points at that end. So I'm personally a big fan of Rob Kearney, and I think he, along with the likes of Rory Best, are two players that I don't know how many times they have to prove themselves as sort of key players for Ireland before the media and all the fans start giving them a hard time.
Yeah, it's like form is temporary, class is permanent. Is that yeah. And I think you're right. I think his reading of the game on Saturday in that situation was fantastic, and probably gives him a lot of confidence as well. I think last weekend probably gets him back on track and on the plane to the World Cup. And although you've got a really tough first game, which is.
Yeah. Although, as I did say, I think the way Scotland play will suit us, because I don't think they'll try and absolutely obliterate us. And I think that will suit Ireland.
Yeah, we can't. We don't have the big, powerful forwards that other teams have, and we play to our strengths. But I think that's why we only go so far at times.
You mentioned the forwards, and Rory Best, obviously a very emotional sender for him. You've known him very well in your Ulster days together. He's got a big role, not just as a hooker, which is a very important position, but as a fulcrum and the focus of Ireland with the captaincy. He, Healy, and Tadhg Furlong not quite got back to their scrummaging best. The scrum creaked a little bit against England, and the line out has been susceptible. He's quite a kind term actually for some of the things that have gone on over the warm up period. Devon Toner isn't there. Is that an exclusion you would balk at?
It was definitely, when the squad was announced, I thought there was a few 50-50 calls, decisions that you can see Joe Schmidt's thinking. That was the Toner omission was the one that under no circumstance did I see coming. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. I do think it's a bit of a risk. Our set piece, in particular, our line out, has come in for a bit of I was about to say pressure. It's a bit under pressure at the minute, let's say. And Rory has taken a hard time for it. And as you well know, Brian, it's not always the hooker's fault. There's lots of there's lots of components. And not having a 6'10" guy who runs the line out well, who calls the ball to the right place, who can see the right winning options, who can get up in the air high and quickly, it does make it harder. And although Wales put out quite a weakened team in the first game, that was the first time I'd seen a back row of Tadhg Byrne, Peter O'Mahony and Jack Conan. And that's what I wonder could be the trade-off. Could Ireland go with 3 line-out forwards in the back row, as well as Henderson and Ryan? And suddenly Rory Best has got the ball at line-out time with 5 winning options, and that might help us.
It certainly will help you, but then you've always a balance. And you mentioned the power aspect. CJ Stander has been one, if not the prime ball carrier for Ireland when they've played well. Where is that going to come from? Because every side needs carriers that can break the gain line, that can set up the quick second phase ball, and everything flows from there. So who are they going to ask to do that?
Well, that's $1 million question for Ireland, and if we can't do that, that is where we struggle. I think that's one reason why, despite Gary Ringrose being a fantastic player, they might go for that size in the centre. If Stander doesn't play, you've still got Jack Conan in there, who's a seriously good ball carrier as well. Probably not quite as big as Stander, but with very good footwork and very powerful. And he's someone I'd be telling the listeners, your listeners, to keep an eye on. I think he could have a big World Cup on the hard surfaces and the fast games over there. But I think James Ryan's made a big difference as well. I think he's sort of, over the last 18 months, has slowly but surely crept up to potentially Ireland's best player at the minute. So he's another guy I'd be telling people to keep an eye on in the World Cup.
Question we're asking everybody, because it's the one that everyone wants to know. Ireland's World Cup record over the whole history of the tournament is not good. They have got a very good squad going out there, certainly at least on paper, depends how the form goes. Where should they realistically be looking as a minimum in this tournament? What return?
It's a tough question to answer, because the group that obviously we're paired up with is that New Zealand-South Africa group. Mm-hmm. So assuming we get out of it, whether we win it or we're second, we're going to be faced with the All Blacks or South Africa. Yep. So I'm not going to lie. I do think Ireland as a country will be a little disappointed if we don't get to the semi-final. And I don't think that. I think that some of that's our hearts here and our passion for the game. And no, we've never been to a semi-final, but there's definitely part of us. We know I think Ireland have beaten New Zealand in 2 of the last 3 goals. I think they've beaten one of I can't remember what the status of South Africa. I think it's 5 in the last 7 or 8. So we know we're capable of beating these teams, and we would be a little bit disappointed if we didn't get a semi-final.
Well, we don't have long to wait, and I'm sure that, like everyone else, you're looking forward to the tournament immensely. Thanks very much for giving us your thoughts, Darren.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Craig, Ireland first up. There are arguments as to whether you would want that or later on in the tournament. To me, given Scotland's form, the chance of catching Ireland a bit cold, I think you're probably better first up. What are your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. I think Ireland first up is good for us. I think we've just won our last 3 games. Obviously, warm-up games, obviously not against the best opposition, Georgia, but the confidence is there, hopefully. The guys are all fit and healthy going onto the plane. Obviously, take the few days to adapt in Japan when they get there, and then throw everything at this first game, absolutely everything, and try and get the result. Because I do believe if we can win the group, we will play South Africa, and that is who I would rather play. I'm not playing, but I would rather play South Africa in the quarterfinals if we can get out the group as group winners.
Well, we talked about Ireland. Why not switch now to Wales and get the thoughts of Jamie Roberts, the Wales and Bath Centre, and now Telegraph columnist. Hello, Jimmy.
Brian, how are you doing, mate?
Okay, Warren Gatland said the competition starts now. He's right in that sense, but 3 defeats from 4 of the warm-up games is not ideal. He doesn't sound worried. Is there any reason for anyone else to be?
No, I don't think so. Look, I obviously played a pretty experimental side against Ireland at home, and that ended in defeat. Obviously, they beat England at home, lost away, couldn't get the result out in Dublin on the weekend. It's a good opportunity. I think those warm-up games, if you win them by 50, well, then you go into the tournament with more confidence. It's difficult to say. If you lose them by 20, 30 points, all of a sudden is it a crisis? I don't think so. It's an opportunity for lads to blow off the cobwebs and put into practice what they've been trying to get done in pre-season. Wales, I think the most important thing for Wales, they have Georgia first up, and I think Warren will go with his starting side for that one. Just to make sure they can hit the ground running, get ready for that test match against Australia in their second game of the tournament.
Well, defence has never been an issue with Wales, one of their big strengths. But if I was to take anything and look at the, critically, I'd wonder, especially with Gareth Anscombe being out now and his creativity, where the tries are going to come from. Because the try haul in the 4 games, was not good.
Yeah, that's one thing that's been picked on. I think Wales have averaged just over kind of double digits in points scored in those first few games. The squad will be aware of that, and I think someone like Rob Howley, who's the attack coach, will be well aware of that, and they need to improve on that if they're going to win the World Cup. There's no doubt about that. They need to score tries, and so that's something they'll be working on, I think, quite hard over the next few weeks. Their defence has been impressive. Albeit made potentially a few soft tries in these warm-up games, but I think collectively as a group they're pretty happy with their defence. But you're right, I think attacking-wise they need to go up a notch. There's no denying that. And whoever the personnel is, there's threats across the park in that Welsh team. We've seen that over the last year, 18 months. If we can get the ball in the hands of Josh Adams, George North, Liam Williams, these guys in space, they're going to cause teams problems. So regardless of who's at outside half.
Hi Jamie, it's Craig Chalmers here. Good to see you on Thursday night. Ambition-wise, is that why the back three? Wales have got one of the best back threes in world rugby, I believe, but are they just not getting the ball into their hands enough? And is that lack of ambition? Is that coming from the top? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's getting the ball to those guys in space, I guess. Obviously the forwards have a platform to deliver off set piece. Do you go wide early. Teams now are pretty savvy to that, and bring a lot of line speed. Ireland certainly did that on the weekend, and it's difficult to play wide before you play tight. That's a pretty basic thing in rugby, but I think we just need to make sure those lads are ready to go on counter attack. Certainly transition ball now. Off turnovers, off counter-attack, it's going to be huge in Japan. The best teams in the world at the minute are scoring points off turnovers, pretty high percentage of points off turnovers. So, those lads have to get into the game off loose ball, and they're dangerous players. Like you look across the whole Welsh back line, Hadley Parks, Jonathan Davis as well. Our scrum halves are pretty quick. Gareth Davis, Aled Davis, Thomas Williams. They're all very sharp. So it's about getting the ball to those guys in space off unstructured play.
Well, you mentioned the need to create room, and the saying is you've got to earn the right to go wide. With the absence of Talipi Faletau, one of the genuine power carriers for Wales has gone. Which of the forwards do you expect to be given the task of creating those hard yards over the gain line?
That falls to the back row lads. Lads like Ross Moriarty, Aaron Wainwright. Those guys, the athletes, the guys who can punch holes, who can punch, one-on-one against, single defenders, against weak shoulders to give the side momentum. There's less space now on the rugby field than there ever has been, and so the need to have big ball carriers and have guys has never been as important. Talupa Faletau was a massive loss because he's someone who can do that against two or three men. He's someone who can carry into brick walls and give the side momentum. And it's important the backs do that as well. When you look at George North, Jonathan Davis, Hadley Parks, they're not small guys, and it's important the backs share that workload as well. We saw Hadley Parks' line at the weekend, especially when you're getting into opposition 22. There's often a brick wall in front of you. You've got to be able to use your backs, and especially your big backs, effectively giving the side momentum. So that responsibility falls across the whole forward pack. It's not one or two guys, it's about them working as a unit to create that space. And someone like Alan Jones is another small bloke either, so he has the ability to do that as well.
Well, you spoke very candidly about your own international career in today's Telegraph. Do you think you've played your final game for Wales?
I think when the World Cup is over, probably. But I had dreams of going to this World Cup. It wasn't to be. Whether I'll have the opportunity if there are injuries remains to be seen. But I've kind of accepted that probably after the World Cup I won't. And that's tough. That's tough to take because I guess you always kind of want to do it on your terms. But look, I understand how brutal Test rugby can be. You can be flavour of the month one month and not the other. And when I do reflect on what I did do in the Welsh jersey, I'm very, very proud. But personally, I feel it kind of ended a bit too soon, but that's my opinion. My opinion doesn't count, does it?
Jamie, with a new coach coming in after the World Cup, surely that's might be an opportunity for you to impress down at Bath, and you just can't. If you still have the ambition and the will to play for Wales, then there's no reason to give up just yet, mate.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm turning 33 in November, so I'm not naive enough to think, potentially for the next World Cup, I might be a bit old. And these things work in cycles. And when they're earmarking players in the next cycle to play at the next one, I'll probably be too old for that. So whether my shot will come again, I'm not sure. But I'm certainly very, very proud of what I achieved for Wales, and we'll see. There's a few months to go yet.
Well, at some point, Jimmy, you're going to have to get on with your medical career. But anyway, you're heading out to Japan in this sense. You go part of the TV coverage. Is it as simple as this? Not winning the World Cup, anything less than that for Wales wouldn't be a success with the squad they've got?
Look, the World Cup works this way. You get out your group and then you win 3 games. I've played in 2 World Cups in 2011, probably the biggest regret of my career, losing in a semi-final by points, not going to that last hurdle. And, that's the closest I'm likely to come. And it's the closest Wales, except for 1987 when they won the 3rd place game, Wales have come. And I just really think this group, in what they've done in the last 18 months, 2 years, and the upward trajectory they've been on, have the ability to go one step further. The groups never pan out as you think they're going to pan out. There's always a couple of upsets, or the first and second place in the group never go to plan. So it's going to be really interesting actually which half of the draw one, the All Blacks and South Africa get in, and two, Wales and Australia as well. And that's without forgetting the likes of England and France, who are in the same group as Argentina. And so there's a lot of interesting matchups, and Scotland. And Scotland. There's a lot of interesting matchups, and going to be in the quarters, semis, and finals. So, look, Wales, I think they'll get out their group. That Australia game is massive to decide their first and second ranking, and that's paying no disrespect to Fiji, but I think Wales should beat Fiji.
Well, have a good time. Don't get caught in the storms that are out there, mate. Be safe.
All the best,
top
mate.
Man. Nice one. Good to chat, lads. Cheers, guys.
Full Contact, in association with Mitsubishi Motors. Everyone's ambitions are different. You can climb to the top, or you could take on uphill battles of a different kind. You can explore for hundreds of miles, or you could begin a bigger journey. You can make time fly, or you could make it stand still. The Mitsubishi SUV range. Drive your ambition.
Time now to speak to someone who's had a long and successful career with Scottish Rugby, both on and off field. Welcome, Alistair Kellogg. Hello, Alistair.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm okay. Look, many different ways into rugby. When did you start? How did your involvement come about?
My uncle played at Stirling County, one of the clubs up here, one of the successful clubs up here, kind of seconds and thirds, and he'd have been the first person to put a rugby ball in my hand. I used to go to all the games to Murrayfield with my parents and my family, but I'm Glasgow-based, Brian, so it's a football city, so all my rugby from an early age was played alongside football, until I got to an age where I had to decide which one I wanted to continue with, and I wasn't very good at football, so I kept going with the rugby.
When you're going through younger careers, I'm sure it's the same for you as it was for me. Playing for the full international team is a distant dream. You just get on with what you're doing, but there comes a point where you think, you know what, there is a possibility you could actually do this. What was the point at which you started to think, actually, this dream might be possibly a reality?
I think it was probably around about the time where we started the Scottish Institute of Sport up here, and there was a kind of original group of players that were brought into it, and I was one of those players. And at that stage, you're thinking, there's obviously somebody seeing something in me, and then probably more so was being selected for the Scottish school. So when you're in that mix, you begin to think, there's a possibility I could go on and play for your country.
Who were your contemporaries that also made it?
Who were my contemporaries? So guys like Mike Blair, Rory Lawson, Chris Cusserton was a year younger. That's all the nines. Who else? We had plenty. Guys like John Beattie, John Bartley, those guys are a wee bit younger than me, but we went to New Zealand as a group of players, and Mike and Rory were heavily involved in that. There was a guy, Stephen Cranston, who came on, got a couple of caps. Kelly Brown was a year younger, but all guys that we came up through the age groups with.
Can you tell us about the moment that you were notified that you were getting your first cap? Yeah,
so it was Australia, and I remember, as selection goes, and the way we used to do it was they would read the team out on the bus on the way into training on a Tuesday. So I was sitting on the bus, and you're hopeful that you're going to get an opportunity, and your name was read out. Now I was on the bench for that game, so it's a funny mixed emotion because you know that you're one step closer, but you're not quite there, and it's not really until you get that nod to come off the bench you realise, this is actually happening.
Can you tell us exactly, if you can remember, what your thoughts and emotions were when you got the signal?
It's a strange emotion because your emotion mixed of, the practicalities of going on to play a game of rugby. So that elation of knowing that you're going on to get your first cap, and like many things in rugby, sometimes it can pass you by until you've got a period to sit down and reflect on it. And as I got older, I got better at doing that as well. I think when you're young, you can assume that a lot of things are going to last forever. And when you get a little bit older and realise that there's plenty of young guys coming through who are likely or will undoubtedly take your jersey at some stage, you treasure it a wee bit more. So as I got to the latter stage of my career, really grabbed that idea of treating every game as if it was your last. Lifting my head during the anthem and taking into account where you were. My family were in the crowd, trying to pick them out in the crowd. And those are the memories that stand out for me now. Some of the games all can emerge into one, but the ability to step back and realise where you are at times is massively important.
Well, you always hope that you're never going to be a one cap wonder, but I've always said you can't tell because players are different, but there comes a point at which you as a player, an international player, you stop negatively thinking, look, just don't make mistakes, don't do anything wrong. And you start to think, actually, you know what? I can play this game at this level. And I'm now going to concentrate on being more positive, not just making mistakes, but actually going out and doing things, expressing things, helping in a way in which I feel I can. Is there a moment where you sort of got there and that thing switched for you? You felt you were part of the team and you were going to make a bigger contribution?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I lost my place for probably 18 months or so, picked up a cap or so across that period. I was only on about 26 caps at the time, and probably was about 26, 27 years old. And when I got back in, I said to my wife, you need to bring our daughter. She was only 6 weeks old at the time, because I said, this could be my last opportunity. Now I got back in, and there was something, exactly to your point, a realisation in my head, just to enjoy it a bit more and take away some of the pressures. And actually, a realisation came with that you add value in and continue to do that. Now I was lucky. I went on and got another 30 caps after that, but that was a pivotal moment in my career where because I'd lost it, it didn't make me more desperate, or it didn't make me try harder. It just made me a wee bit smarter about how I approached international rugby, and it was a real privilege to be involved in every game, because you knew the feeling of sitting at home watching it as well.
Well, obviously, the contributions you made impressed the powers that be, because 2011, big year for you. You were named captain for the Six Nations and then for the New Zealand World Cup. Did you have any inkling that you were in line for that? Did they discuss it with you prior to that?
The inkling came from the fact that I'd captained Scotland in some of the games, as you said, captained Scotland in the Six Nations, but in some of the summer tours previously as well. But at that stage, there was guys like Mike Blair and Chris Custer who were probably in line as well. Now, there was a good amount, a high degree of competition at 9, also in the second row. And to captain Scotland was, the biggest honour I've had in rugby. I still remember the first game where I led the team out, but then to get that nod from, it was Andy Robinson, who was coaching us, that I was going to be captain at the World Cup was incredible.
Can you tell us that might have been the pinnacle of career, or it might have been something else? If you had to pick of your playing career 2 or 3 standout moments that will, live with you, what would they be?
The leading the team out for the first time over in France was an incredible feeling. I'd grown up watching some of the greats, guys like David Soule leading the team out, like John Jeffrey leading the team out, and to be part of that group of players, and you never knew how long it was going to be. Even to be mentioned in the same breath, it was special. My 50th cap, I think, because as I said earlier, you get to that point in your career, you realise it's not going to last forever. And got my 50th cap, and John Beattie Senior came in and presented it to me in the dressing room, and again that was a huge moment. I didn't, I'd worked incredibly hard to get there, and at times probably there was no guarantee I was going to get there. And then the biggest, the pinnacle was a non-international moment. My last ever game of rugby was our Pro 12 victory for Glasgow in 2015. So I was very privileged that my last act as a professional rugby player was lifting that trophy above my head, and I think because it was the last act and because it was a bit of a full stop on my career, it stands out as the greatest moment, my biggest moment.
Well, the squad's out for Japan. It's I'm absolutely positive it's the most open World Cup of any I can remember. New captain Stuart McNally. Was this expected? Why do you think he got the nod over, say, Greg Laidlaw or John Barclay?
I think he's shown he can captain, he's shown he can lead. He did that down at Twickenham, and I was going to say famous, maybe infamous game during the Six Nations. Certainly in the second half, he showed the point of difference that leadership on the field could make. He carries himself incredibly well. He's good amongst the squad. He's not a guy who's going to be shouting and screaming, but he leads by example in every single aspect of what he does, both performance-wise and all the other elements that constitute being the captain of your country. I don't think it's in any way a slight on John Barclay or Greg Laidlaw. I think it's more a compliment to Stuart and his ability to lead. You know yourself that in any team you need a group of leaders. It's not just going to be one man. It can't just be one man. So his big challenge is to make sure he takes those guys with him. Other guys like Pete Horn, like Ryan Wilson, who have a big influence in the leadership group, because it will take more than just him for the on-field and off-field.
Completely. Everyone can argue about a squad. You can only take so many people. Some people are going to miss out. Hugh Jones, Rory Hutchinson, two of the ones caught the eye that didn't quite make it, especially Jones with his latter performances. Do you think they're unlucky? What do you think about the decision to not take them?
Well, I think it shows the strength and depth that we've got, which, I would say it's probably the deepest, strongest squad we've had going into a World Cup. And that's highlighted with some of the guys that aren't going, and you even look at the second row, my old position, and unfortunately lost Sam Skinner, which is a big loss for his ability to cover the back row. Richie Gray as well not going. So Hugh Jones, I think he'll be disappointed with the summer. Disappointed that he's maybe not grabbed that opportunity, because he would have been a guy who's got enough credit in the bank to get himself very, very close to going, and then you just need to grab that last opportunity. As I say, it's a strong squad. It's a squad that's got a nice balance to it. A squad that's got a good leadership element to it as well. We're in a tough group. We've got to play the hosts, obviously, in the last of the group stages, in what could be a pivotal match. Who knows what's gone before that? And with Ireland first up, I think Ireland first up was good for us, because we're playing a Northern Hemisphere team who has gone through similar preparations to we have, similar amount of test matches. But it's going to be, I agree with you, it's a tight World Cup to look at, but it's an exciting World Cup.
The problems that Gregor Townsend has had trying to get his preparation right, not his fault. All teams get injuries. Very few squads get so many injuries in one specific position, and that was the notable thing about Scotland's injury list. You were having, wholesale back rowers and front rowers just not available, and I always thought it would be difficult to get them, even though it's good that they've all come back in and they're all available, to do the reconstruction work, to familiarise them, even though they're experienced players, will take some time. Do you think Gregor will have enough time to get that fluency back?
I do. I think we've seen the performances improve throughout the summer tests. The initial game in France, everybody was at panic stations or externally. What does this mean? Well, ultimately it was the first hit out in a pre-season game. Now it is a test match, and all the pressures come with that. But the squad at that stage was still going through a heavy pre-season training. And I think we've seen that across all of the summer tests for the home nations, that performances have been varied because the different stages of their preparation. Ultimately, every coach's job is to get the team that they're coaching to the World Cup in the best possible condition, and that's physical condition, mental condition, and rugby under their belts.
inevitably, when things don't go right, there are a number of comments from all sorts of people, some informed, some less so. There's been one or two comments about the style that is played by Scotland under Gregor. Some people saying, try to play too much rugby, not enough practicality. My assessment has been Scotland's best chance of winning games is by playing with fluidity, with ambition, because they've got strength in that area, rather than trying to grind games down and, win by the odd point, which I don't think they're suited to. What do you think Gregor's approach in terms of tactics will be?
I agree with you. We don't want to get into an arm wrestle with teams. We need to go out there and we need to attack. What Gregor is going to be working on, and what needs to be right, is the ability to control the game at times. The ability to take the sting out of the game. Maybe the opposition are having a good kind of 10-15 minutes. How do we grab control back of a game instead of continually having to chase it? Everybody thinks about Finn Russell and his ability to go forward, and he is a phenomenal talent. But what I've seen from him recently is that ability to control a game as well. I think that he's a very smart rugby player. His time in France has taught him that. And when it's time to go, it'll be, pedal to the floor, let's have a go, let's make sure we're playing fast, aggressive rugby. And then at other times when it's time to control it, I believe we've got that ability in us as well, and it goes wider than just a Finn or a Stuart Hogg. When you look at whoever gets selected at 9, because it's still, it's a place that's definitely up for grabs. Their ability to control the game from 9 will be massively important as well.
I wish Scotland all the best, and thank you very much for speaking to us.
Ryan, thank you very much.
Top man, bye-bye. While you're here, World Cup memories, there are lots of them. We both shared an experience in 1990, a Grand Slam, went your way. Then we shared an experience in the World Cup the following year. It went our way. Gavin Hastings said it's the biggest regret of his career that he missed that kick between the posts. Should you have taken it?
Yeah, well, I actually started the World Cup as first choice goal kicker. I kicked through the Grand Slam in 1990 and the 1991 Five Nations. And I started the World Cup as first choice kicker against Japan. I got a dead leg after the third try, and Gavin took over the kicking because of it.
It was as simple as that. Is that the reason?
That's the reason. And
thank God for that.
And he took over the kicking in that game, and he was nailing them beautifully. And the balls were new balls. They were Webb Ellis balls, which were slightly different. But listen, it doesn't matter who knocks him over as long as they go over. And he didn't miss a kick all the way through until that game against England in the semi-final. And he did take a knock. He did take a knock himself just before that. Took a short ball, took a knock to the leg, and but he took the kick. I mean, it's one of these kicks you look back on, and Gav would kick that every day of the week, with his left foot. So it was just a massive surprise. We were back at the halfway line, expecting them to knock it over.
We had to defend the post, but
9-6 up, 5-6, whatever it was to go. There wasn't enough long time left, and you guys came back in the park, and Rob dropped a goal. Fantastic drop goal. A picture of me diving to try and charge it down, but listen. It happens. It's the small margins between success and failure, and there's no reason why we couldn't have went on. I thought you guys were going to go on and win that World Cup.
So did I.
And I did. I thought you were the best team. And
it's all gone now.
It is gone. It is what might have been, but it's small margins, and there's little things. Looking back in your final in '91, there's little things in that game that you look what could, but. It's taking the chances and they come along, and a bit of luck along the way as well.
Well, that's what people perhaps underestimate. The winners of this World Cup will need a little bit somewhere. It's always happening in every other World Cup, and you need that. I'm not saying you need outrageous stuff, but just the bounce of a ball, just the rub of a green with a decision, or whatever. Look, let's finish with some more reflections. Some sad news. Saw you paying tribute to the great Chester Williams on Twitter, who sadly died this week, I think, aged just 49. What a player. What are your memories of him?
Oh, listen, I played against Chester. 94 at Murrayfield was the first time I played against Chester, and very quiet guy, very unassuming, iconic figure in South African rugby, but also world rugby. The only black player in that World Cup final, and he's just a fantastic bloke. I spent 6 weeks with him during the last World Cup working with a company, and we got to know him really, really well. And just a fantastic bloke. Talk to everybody, anybody, and some great stories of his career and his life. And just got it's such a shame. It's taken far too soon. And obviously our thoughts are with his family and friends.
Absolutely, an iconic World Cup, politically seismic contributions from many people, including Chester Williams. Rest in peace. That's all we have time for this week on Brian Moore's Full Contact with the Telegraph and Mitsubishi Motors. Thank you very much to my co-host Craig Chalmers, and thank you, as always, to all our guests. Please do subscribe to the podcast to make sure you don't miss an episode every Monday during the World Cup and beyond, and please write a review whilst you're there too. But for now, goodbye.
Full Contact, in association with Mitsubishi Motors. Drive your ambition.